Hello, everyone. My name is Caleb Bendour. I'm the editor of the Fathom Journal. With me is Deputy Editor Andrew Apostolou, and we are extremely happy to be joined by Dr. Merav Roth. She is a clinical psychologist, psychoanalyst, and cultural researcher. She's an expert in traumatic loss and literature, a specialist in treating grief, bereavement, and loss. She's also the founder and chair of the FLM, which is a civil philanthropic organization that provides long-term therapy for those affected by October the 7th and its aftermath. She's also a professor at the School of Therapy, Counseling and Human Development at the University of Haifa. We are recording this late March during the war between Israel and Iran. Hopefully there will not be a siren or a warning of a siren while we're recording. Merav, thank you so much for joining us. It's really an honor to speak to you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Your expertise, as we said, is in trauma and traumatic loss. Can you explain how traumatic bereavement differs from normative bereavement?
Yes. The best, I think the best description or explanation comes from Freud, 1917, and it's not by coincidence that it's after World War One. In his seminal paper named Mourning and Melancholia, where he says the simple thing that in normal mourning, in regular mourning, what you feel is that you are in grief, anger, disappointment. You feel rebellious. You don't want to accept reality. But after a while, your psyche accepts the fact that there is loss that you need to come into terms with. And then it's as if you stood in front of a closed door of the one that you lost, and you knocked on it day after day, and it wasn't opened, and until you realize that you have to turn your face back to life and to other connections. And then what will happen is that you will take even the things that happened in this relationships, the treasures, even the bad parts, you will take them into your next relation, and it will enrich the meaning of relationships, etc. But in melancholia, in what we call traumatic grief, you are not willing to leave that closed door. This is my metaphor, not Freud's, but this is what he means. You're not willing to continue. It's a kind of an Italian strike. You just stay wherever you were left, where a traumatic loss happened, and you refuse to continue. Unconsciously, there is a paper I wrote recently named Mending Traumatic Time. In order to recover, you need to interweave the past, the traumatic time, and the present and the future into a meaningful story that you can continue with. But when the loss is very traumatic, you are trapped in traumatic time. Like in Israel, many people said for 2 years, until I think the last hostage returned, either deceased hostages or alive, we said, I'm still in October 7, right? Because we were trapped in the traumatic time. We could not continue. We said, until the last one will be back home, we cannot continue. So this is a kind of an image that we can hold to in order to understand what it means. But for someone who really lost someone from close, saw someone murdered or kidnapped with his eyes, or all the disasters that or right now, seeing that, your house burning and someone trapped in it, all these terrible sights, sometimes it's very difficult for the psyche to say, okay, accept this reality, and then it retreats from reality and trapped in the trauma.
That's very interesting. Can I follow up on that, please? Um, so, as you know, many people, often people like myself who are not experts, refer to something called PTSD, which of course
Mm,
begins with the word post, P. Um,
yes.
And you emphasize the conditions for healing require the ending of the event. So that leads to two questions, doesn't it? That to what extent can, you know, you mentioned Freud, Western or modern approaches to trauma be applied to all Israelis, given that they don't necessarily come from that cultural framework? Um,
Mhm.
and how do you treat the trauma if the post hasn't happened yet? If you're still going through those conditions of grief and conflict, we're not at the P to get the rest.
Yes, well, okay. First of all, you're right that in order I wouldn't say to go to post-traumatic stress disorder, but to go to post-traumatic growth. That's what we want, right? To go to post-traumatic growth, we need to get to that P of the post. And here we have, I think, three big obstacles. One is the fact that this trauma here is multi-layered because people not only lost, I don't know, their son, their grandchild, their parent, they also lost their home, lost the place they were living in, and they're evacuated until now, 2.5 years later. From October 7, people are still evacuated. The war continues, and then again, and then again, and then again. Missiles above our heads, 2.5 years after October 7. So it's re-traumatization. It's triggering all the events again and again, and it's accumulating. There is an expression by Masood Khan, a psychoanalyst, accumulative trauma. It's accumulating in your psyche, and it's a heavy burden, and it does not allow you that precious moment, although a sad moment, of raising your hand and saying, okay, that's what happened to me. Beginning self-compassion and therapy, or working through metabolizing all that you've been through and trying to find meaning in your future and your future life and relations, etc. It does not allow you to do that because you are under the most extreme circumstances until now. This is one thing. And the other thing is that it's both multi-layered. No, okay, so this was one and two, the multi-layered and the continuous. And the third part is what you say about the cultural aspect. So on the one hand, we do use modern Western therapy in Israel, but in another organization that I'm chairing in University of Haifa, it's called Interweaving, and it's the Shti Erev, and it's a center for cultural cultural sensitive therapy. And we know that you cannot provide therapy to an Ethiopian girl, to a Druze, to an Arab woman from the village in the same languages and tools as you provide to someone who lives in Tel Aviv who has the same codes and language like in New York. And it's very crucial to realize that. It's, not to be under the illusion that the hegemonic language will be suitable and applicable to everyone. So, and the sad thing is that in such times, the more vulnerable societies become even more transparent, and they get less aid because we are impoverished by our energy, finance, scope of help that we can provide. So it's very, very important to remember these groups in our society and not to lose them, because the most unjust thing is that the weaker becomes even more weak during times of crisis and war and such tragedy like these people are going through.
Thank you, Merav. In the days after October the 7th, 2023, you went to the Dead Sea where a lot of the survivors had been taken, and you had various conversations with them. Can you tell us a little bit about those conversations? And also, you've kind of famously come from a Holocaust survivor home. To what extent does generational trauma, there's kind of these two different directions it can go. It can, on the one hand, provide us with greater resilience, and on the other hand, it can kind of double the trauma. Can you speak to that as well in a kind of Israeli or Jewish context?
Yes, of course. So first of all, the first thing I want to tell you is that when I went down to the Dead Sea, it was October 9th, the day after Kibbutz Be'eri were evacuated to the David Hotel in the Dead Sea. I on the way from Tel Aviv, it's like more than 2 hours. First of all, I couldn't breathe normally. I was anxious, and I thought I will come to the most stormy, wild, noisy place on earth, like after a volcano. And I was overwhelmed by silence. It was the most quiet place I've ever seen. People were so shocked, so overwhelmed by what they went through, that they were really like kids, wide open eyes, and very passive and very quiet, hugging each other quietly and crying. It was very, very sad and very strong experience. And then what we did is to we just put on the zero floor of the hotel, we all put like necklaces written therapists, and we told the kibbutz team, tell your people to come and talk to us, because it's very important to mobilize their psychic functions immediately, because this is very crucial in trauma, the first days. And they did. They came and we sat with them, 10 minutes here, 2 hours there, whatever they needed, just in corners of one big hall. All our psychoanalytic setting, the sacred psychoanalytic setting was sent into the garbage, and we did what was needed. And what I found very soon was that the life instinct is still there, and it was quite inspiring to find out. I found it again when I met the hostages coming back from captivity after a year and a half, when I began working with them, or with a woman after 50 days, that even in the most radical trauma, there is the life instinct inside that wants you to send a rope so that they can pull, in order to feel some kind of hope and solidarity. And so there is a story that I tell about this old woman, 85-year-old. I sat with her the second day after I came there, and she said, in such cruel world, I don't want to live. And I said to her, raise your head for a second and look around you. In such a world, do you want to live? And it was full with people, with therapists, body therapists and psychologists and social workers, and donations of food and clothes and da 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 da. And she looked at me and her eyes were with tears, and she said, I don't know where these angels came from. And it was so strong for me to see how fast the life instinct took what I gave it, in order to see also there is good in this life, and not only bad, not only cruelty. And this is the both and that we are trying to reach with our patients, clients, that they see the both and, that yes, there is terrible cruelty and loneliness and loss and terrible tragedies, but there is also tenderness and care and solidarity and love and seeing the other. This is also here. And when they see that, they use it immediately. And that's what also you do, is you show them how during their most harmful and terrible moments, they use everything in their power to help those around them and to keep their humanity. For instance, parents who were with a mother who was with her kid suffocating in a house on fire. And the kid asked her, Mommy, are we going to die? And she told me afterwards they were saved. And she told me afterwards, I looked at him and I thought, it cannot be that the last thing I will tell him in our lives would be a lie. And she said, I don't know. I hope not, but I don't know. And afterwards I thought that this, and I empowered this in her, saying that you had a chance to just, let go of this burden, and telling him, yes, we'll be okay, as a parent would want to say, but you felt that your ethical covenant with your kid is more precious, and you chose that in that radical moment. So these kind of conversations were what gave these people back, regaining their sense of human strength, resilience, ethical standing. And this is how we work with them. And about the Jewish background and also the traumatic intergenerational background, it is just as you said. It goes both ways. On the one hand, it is very heavy to think, and I keep thinking, I was supposed to be my father's answer to his experience as a 13-year-old in Budapest, uh, escaping a long line of 450 Jews sent from the ghetto to the Danube, shot, and he was saved because his mother put him in a small toilet box. And they stood there, and they had no other choice but to go back to the ghetto, although the day after they could take them again to the Danube. And he stood there and he said, we need a state. The Jews need a state. We need a place that will feel like home, that our neighbors would never allow this to happen. And I am supposed to be his answer. Tkuma, Shoah and Tkuma, we say. So on the one hand, I feel devastated by the fact that if he would be alive, he would see that this answer is not so resilient as he would want us to be, or imagined us to feel safe and secure on this land. At the same time, we know, because of the Holocaust, because of intergenerational trauma, that resilience did help our people to survive the Holocaust, and for instance, 3 years after Auschwitz, to have the State of Israel born and begin building its future. And these personal and general stories of resilience come as an aid both to my patients and to me. So I can give you two small examples. One example is of a patient who was in captivity with her children, and her grandmother used to tell her how in the Holocaust she was a 3-year-old and she had this doll and she played with it under the table the whole time, and she was in an imaginary world. And she survived psychologically because of that doll. And she brought that doll to Israel, and they knew the story. And then when she was in captivity and she saw her 3-year-old kid, blonde curls, sweet, sweet child, I know her by now very good, very well. She looked at her and she said, she can survive and one day be a grandmother of a huge tribe, happy, strong. I know it for her because of my background. So this is one example. And the most extreme example I have was when I came into a room with kids who lost their parents and siblings. There were 2 kids, 9 and 13, who lost their elder siblings and their parents. And we came with these teams of, we call it like bitter message, that when you tell someone, I'm sorry to say that you lost your parents. So we came with a social worker of the state, and she told them, and I was with my husband, who is also a psychologist. And it was, one of those moments that I remember very, very well, the moment before the door, before I entered. And then it dawned on me, and I said, like to the air, I said, kids, Danny's father, my husband, and my father both lost their parents in the Holocaust. and they became our fat, happy, loving fathers. And here we are with you now. And you should know that. And I knew that it's very hard for them to hear anything, but I hope their unconscious heard me. And I certainly know in retrospect that it helped me to survive that moment, to look at these kids and know that they have a future that can be meaningful with families, with their children and grandchildren. It helped me survive as a therapist in that moment, that very, very difficult moment of encountering such a huge tragedy.
Thank you. And also thank you for reminding us of your wonderful father, who was such a
Yes,
fantastic personality in
thank you.
Israel. Really an amazing person. You referred in your writing to the concept of the fourth circle, in which
Mhm.
we start with the first circle, which is parents, siblings, and children. The second circle is grandparents and grandchildren. The third circle is aunts and uncles, cousins, nieces, and nephews. And the fourth circle is the rest of us.
Yes.
And in your case, I think it's Israeli society as a whole, the
Mhm.
rest of Israeli society. What sort of trauma would you describe this fourth circle as experiencing? And how can people in that fourth circle actively assist those in the inner circles who are traumatized?
Yes. So first of all, this name, the fourth circle, uh, someone asked me about FLM, and I told him that the state helps the first circle, and we are supported by partnerships and donations from around the world for the second and third circles, and I explained them to him. And he asked me, so who am I? And I was surprised and I looked at him and I said instinctively, you are the fourth circle. That's how the name was invented. And then I wrote this post in the Facebook about the fourth circle and became viral in a minute. And I realized how much we needed a name, how transparent we feel. And even in your question, when you ask me, the ending of your question is immediately, and how does this circle help the other circles, the inner circles? So I think this is a symptom because we treat ourselves as the privileged ones with survival guilt and with the need to help those who really suffer, who really suffered an immediate loss in the family, or hostages families or bereaved families. But actually, we are also experiencing a very radical reality for 2.5 years. I want to imagine people to imagine like in London or in New York or in Berlin. Try to imagine that for 2.5 years there is war. There are people are running in and out the shelter during the day, during the night. They don't work. Their children are at home, they cannot go to school. They're not going to the park with them because they're afraid that the missile will fall on their heads. They need to answer a 4-year-old like my grandson who asked, why are we running like this to the shelter? So you have to think, what do I tell him? Do I tell him, do I lie to him? Ah, we have a siren soon. Okay, we have a few minutes, but then we'll have a siren and
I have it
to
too. Why don't you
it's
finish
an
this?
illustration, a good illustration.
Why
Do
don't
you
you?
need to
It's a
go
great
to the
illustration. Why don't you finish this one, Merav,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then we
yeah.
will if I
Yeah,
wait
yeah,
here.
okay. I have 10 minutes. I may shelter unless you have to go
I'm
a longer
okay.
way. You're okay? Okay, so we can wait with the siren.
This is a great example, Merav,
Yes,
because I
exactly.
feel like many Israelis, I'll speak for myself, we focus on the people who have it much worse.
Yes, exactly.
And that you wrote about this very beautifully. I don't know if you said only. We only have to deal with a siren because a missile because we have a safe room in the house. But
Yes.
that is not normal
Yeah.
at all. And in
They
some
sim
ways, the fourth circle has not given itself the space or really anything because I think a lot of people are aware of we're not circle one, two, or three, but
exactly.
it's
Yes.
still hard. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, it's exactly as you say. We only speak now online and we have to stop because there is a siren. This siren means that you and I are threatened by missiles that are trying to kill us. And this is not something that the psyche can really grasp, but unconsciously, there is a huge hole in our fuel tank because all the time we lose energy on our defense mechanisms who need to block away the fact that our life is in real immediate danger. And by the way, a huge population in Israel does not have a shelter. They are not defended. They don't have a siren like here in Tel Aviv that has 10 minutes, but only like a few, like one moment. And they are really in this Russian roulette, not knowing if they will survive or not, but their neighbor lost someone in the war or lost someone who was kidnapped and murdered in captivity. So near them, they are only surviving now. I talked to a patient of mine yesterday and she said, I'm very anxious. And I was sure that she speaks about her anxiety from dying. And I said, can you elaborate? And she said, yes, I think they will probably throw me away from the apartment because I don't have a salary. I cannot work because I cannot go to work. So people are struggling very, very heavily. And they don't allow them, and their symptomatology is terrible. We saw the measures of the Ministry of Health. The symptomatology is from wall to wall: sleeping disorders, depression, anxiety. One of every four adults is using substance to calm himself. PTSD, a flood of PTSD. But yet again, we are trying to feel resilient, we are trying to help the others, and we feel that it's only this, because such huge tragedies took place here, that we feel embarrassed. Okay, we have a siren now.
Okay, we will
Going to
pause
the
here.
shelter.
So we are now back after that short interlude. Merav, you were talking about the fourth circle and the idea of only.
Yes, yes. And we had a very good illustration now, right? Because we talk online and then we have to stop because we have to go to the shelter. You know, Freud was talking about the uncanny, and he said when someone is encountered facing death from near in a very radical position that is not we're not used to in life, he is thrown out from his going on being, from his obvious continuation of life, of body, of family, of relations, of work, of friends. Nothing continues the way it was supposed to, and we lose our faith in the basic order of things, of life, the ethical covenant that we are defended by the bigger authorities. First our parents, then our government. So nothing works, and you are thrown out of this sense of security, and you need to go back to our conversation and say, okay, nothing happened, I'm alive, but unconsciously it's very heavy because it's a death and life instinct. Our instinct to save ourselves from dying is very, very basic. So, and above all, we have also a huge moral injury as a whole society because of what happens to our neighbors in Gaza. We know that there is a terrible, devastating humanitarian crisis to our neighbors, and we are societies who are like marionettes under these big events of war, and we lose our right to feel that we can live our lives in dignity, in equation, in freedom, speaking of Passover and the Easter. So we feel so bad for so much injury around us and within us. We feel survival guilt from the outside and from the inside. And all this is a very, very heavy burden.
Thank you. And I'm glad you're both safe, and I'm glad we're able to resume our discussion after that slightly rude interruption by some people in the Iranian regime. Let's get back to these circles. I think it's just a fascinating idea, and I'm curious because I'm on the outside.
Mhm.
Is there a fifth circle for the various diasporas? I mean, obviously there's the Jewish diaspora, there's the Palestinian diaspora, there's an Armenian diaspora, there's a Druze diaspora, and others. And we're on the outside, and we see people who we're connected to under fire. What's our role in this maybe therapeutic post-traumatic process?
Yeah. This is I think it's a brilliant thought that the outsiders of the countries who suffer are the fifth circle. And because you feel even more incompetent in helping us, reaching out. I know there is, I can see in my email how many emails of support I get from all over the world by colleagues, psychoanalysts who share their sympathy and support with me. And I can feel that they are in distress of themselves because they are far away and they see their colleagues, their friends suffering, and they cannot do anything to help. I think it creates also in the fifth circle also another kind of reaction from maybe the other pole, which is falling into the psychological rules of war, which are based on the most primitive aspects in the human psychology. Melanie Klein, the psychoanalyst, would call it the paranoid schizoid position, when we split everything into good and bad, black and white, us and them, and then it's so easy to reach the position of demonization, cruelty, hatred, and this kind of reaction is, I think, also happening in the fifth circle. So it's either the good part, the good aspect of the good and bad, great sympathy, I think survival's guilt, a longing to help, and also feeling incompetent in really being able to help. And on the other hand, treating us as if we are really a whole group of good, a whole group of bad. Either the Israelis are the demons and the Gaza people, or the Iranians are the victims, or the other way around, which is a total absurd if you know societies and not regimes. The societies are built from people who want to live their lives, raise their children. No baby is born a monster, and not even a cruel soldier. So this is also another part, I think, that we suffer both from within and probably the fifth circle as well. And I think we need to do a lot of advocating and speaking out loud this bias that is suffused by the cruelty of war and is losing its connection to ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, to loving the other like you love yourself, meaning the other is like yourself. You are the same as all other human creatures, and you need to reach them in peaceful and empathetic ways, and then you can reach peace and more harmony. We will never reach just peace and harmony because the human psyche is complex. But if you take responsibility over this complexity, and when regimes, when states take responsibility over the complexity, the fact that each of us is both destructive and good, then we can reach better terms and better connections. And I think this period of time, the world lost its track, and we all are, we have a role. You know, in the shelter, I read Rabbi Heschel, the philosopher, and he walked near Martin Luther King to Montgomery. And when he went back to his hotel that day, he wrote, "Today my feet were praying." I think we all need to pray with our feet. We need to take a stand in the world because the world is losing its track, and we need to call back sanity and solidarity and just world to a juster world than what we have now. We don't deserve this.
Thank you, Merav. It's interesting you bring in Heschel, who was an extraordinary thinker and rabbi. I actually wanted to bring in a different thinker in the 20th and 21st century, which is Jonathan Sacks. You emphasize the importance of hope. And I was wondering, do people need, do you find hope inside yourself, or is it something external? And to what extent is it an action, or is it a feeling? So Sachs has got this kind of pithy thing about optimism and hope. He says optimism is the belief that the world is changing for the better. Hope is the belief that together we can make the world better. Optimism is
Yes,
a passive virtue. Hope is an
exactly.
active one. And so I'm just wondering, when you talk about the importance of hope, what does that mean for you, and how do we do it?
Yes, first of all, I admire and I'm inspired by Jonathan Sachs, and he when he speaks about repairing a broken world, he speaks exactly about what you're saying now, that we have a role, and it's similar. It's similar to what Heschel says. We have a role. We can take a stand, and hope is built. The material that hope is built from is our values. Hope is, for me, seeing beyond the horizon. The horizon shows what the limited eye sees, right? But hope means I can imagine a better world after the horizon. And after I imagine it, I need to begin to walk towards that aim, that future, that possibility that is not in sight right now. Because if we walk only by what is in sight right now, we are in despair and not in hope. And you know, when I was, we have another siren soon. When I talked to the hostages that came back after a year and a half, and I asked them about what helped them in captivity. The human imagination is such an amazing cure. What gave them hope was imagining beyond what they saw. They saw their feet in chains, they saw their starving bodies, they saw their friends being killed, but they imagined conversations with their families after they come out from captivity. They imagined travels in nature with them. They imagined music that they could not hear, but they could hear in their minds. So I think this is hope. Hope is imagining a better state or a better world, and then doing all that is in your power and based on your better values in order to achieve it. And you're right, being optimistic or pessimistic is more of a characterization. It's passive, and it's you know, my brother wrote a book about my father. And my father says it's called Memories After My Death. And my father says there, but it's confusing because actually it's my brother said, but my father says there that an optimistic is someone who was born optimistic. So it's a part of your character. It has and I guess it does influence your life, because if you believe that a better future can become, probably it gives you more fuel to work towards that better future, but it's mostly passive.
Okay, well, look, let's suspend for a few minutes, and we'll come back, and we've got two final questions. But you
We
guys head.
I don't mind, but we still have a few moments until the siren, so whatever you
Just,
let-
Merav, I'll just say that in that book, there's an incredibly powerful bit that actually, even thinking about it, gets me emotional, which is where the author, which is obviously Yair, but in your father's voice, I think they've gone. I think they've gone to Hungary. They've gone back to the place, and then they go to the. I don't know if it's the bridge or whatever. Or there's a certain bit, and then again, the author says, "I hope Yair understood what I was saying to him. I think he did." And obviously, it's yeah, but that the kind of the intergenerational messaging about
Yes.
the lessons that we need to learn, I think is incredibly powerful. Andrew, why don't you ask the question, then we'll see how far we get.
Okay, so thank you. We keep being interrupted by these people in Iran. It's very rude. But you've said that recovery means the possibility of living a life of both and, both pain and beauty, both rupture and repair. Can you explain a little what this might look like?
Yes, there is this expression of post-traumatic growth, and I don't really like it because it seems as if it's a journey. You go from, point A to B to C, and then you're out of trauma. I don't believe that, and I don't see it with my patients. I worked with traumatic loss for 30 years. And what we can reach, the best we can reach, is that people will live with their trauma, their traumatic memories, and the way they influence their lives, including symptomatology to a certain amount, which is fair enough. It's okay. The psyche is allowed to react to such terrible experiences. But at the same time, to oh, okay, I'm sorry, there is a siren now, so we will continue.
We are now resuming for the third time.
So this is our aim. I think we can help people, both really traumatized, but also the fourth circle. We can. I think what we need to do is to pay attention to the fact that war is taking us only to one aspect, one pole of life, which is the destructive, violent, hateful, revengeful part of life, which is very dangerous for us as a society and as individuals. And what we do now, when I speak, to people around me, I say, take your eyes away from that, away from the media, away from the war. There is works of art, there is literature, there is historical figures that we're inspired by. I'm always leaning on Etty Hillesum, who wrote her diary during the Holocaust. Or we mentioned Jonathan Sacks and Rabbi Heschel and novels and friendships and someone who likes cooking can cook. We need to remember that there are both and there are these cruel aspects of life, but there are beautiful aspects of life every single second. And there is always someone who needs help, who needs our, soft look and a hand on the shoulder, even when we're in the shelter. If I remember to raise my eyes to my husband and say, we are tired of all this, it changes the whole atmosphere in a sec, because I remembered that we can still look at each other because we are really impoverished from our strengths and our resources, and we need to refuel ourselves by looking at the other side, at the both end. And the same with trauma. Recovery from trauma is the both end, that people will live with their traumatic symptomatology, experiences, memories, but they will also live meaningful lives, and they will be able to reclaim their ability to choose how to live their lives, on what values to base them, what do they want from the world to look like, I participated in a conference in Philadelphia online 2 weeks ago, and there was a psychologist from Gaza who spoke after me, Salem Al-Ajani, and we had such a moving conversation about our shared values. And this is tikkun olam for me. It's a repairing moment for me, knowing that we can communicate and we can reach out to each other and think together how we help children in Israel and in Gaza, and helping each other with our knowledge to help traumatized people in both sides of the border. So there is always also these possibilities, and we need to look for them in order to recover.
Thank you, Merav. One last question, and thank you so much for your time, the extended time that this interview has taken. In your book, you wrote the following about your life after your sister died. I became a worker in the port of sorrow, lifting her sleeves at dawn and beginning to remove the waves of pain back from the shore to the sea of death, trying to provide my parents' failing feet with a piece of land to live on. This is incredibly powerful imagery. Many others find themselves in the port of sorrow, but they may not have the inclination or the skills to become workers in that port. How can people provide for others emotionally as you did and as you do?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to say that I'm very lucky that I can today, with much more knowledge, help others. Sometimes people ask me, how come you still have strength? And I say, I'm the lucky one who has strength because I can help others. It's very helpful. It's the most helpful thing to help others, but not everybody can. And some people are on the side of my parents. They are shattered and they need help, and they need someone else to see them and to take their tears into the sea of sorrow, and to hug them back into the human community. But still, many of them, even in the most um, harsh circumstances, when they will see someone who is in more misery than them, they will find themselves inside themselves the strength to reach out to him. This is the beauty in the human mind, that let someone reach out to someone in more pain, sorrow, distress, and they will do that, and both sides will get help from this simple, small human gesture. So not everybody can, but then again, if you let them, I think they will find the power to help someone else near them. And I saw that even really in the stories about, people in the shelter that were shot at for hours and hours, but they did open the door, threatening their own lives in order to bring in a neighbor with her kid that was running outside and shouting. And they threatened their own children because they wanted to help someone else. So this, it's sad, but it's also moving and hopeful, that we can always find inside ourselves some more strength to see the other and to reach out and to feel solidarity and care, and to regain the ethical covenant of human relations back to its place.
Well, Merav, thank you so much. This has been a real pleasure for us, full of insights. And so thank you for taking the time to speak to us, and thank you for your continued work with so many people in Israeli society.
Thank you both very, very much. And happy Passover, happy Easter, and quiet and peaceful time for everybody.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.